Hello, this is Adam Bernard with AutoPerspectives and a roundup of some of the more interesting stories that hit the auto industry over the past week or so. First up, Renault pivots to hybrids. Well, while many automakers are adding plug-in hybrids to their portfolios to ease the transition to EVs, Renault thinks they have a better idea. Up until 4 years ago, Renault had plug-in hybrid versions of the Megane compact hatchback and the Captur small SUV. Right now, the only thing they have left as a plug-in hybrid is the Rafale, which is their flagship SUV. And that's the kind of cutaway that you see here. And Renault says, frankly, that plug-in hybrids are not practical for smaller vehicles, which is just about everything that Renault makes, due to cost and packaging challenges. And so Renault has said they are now pursuing non-plug-in strong hybrids across the board, not mild hybrids that we see a lot of automakers doing, but strong hybrids, which, to be honest, most automakers have backed away from in favor of plug-ins. Renault notes that the resale value of electrified vehicles is slowly improving. Taxes on non-electrified vehicles are increasing, and battery prices are dropping, which all creates a more an environment that's friendlier to strong hybrids. This overall is, in the industry, fairly unique, although it's worth noting the other company really pushing this is Toyota. They launched the Prius, so they kind of created the whole demand for hybrids, but even they are adding plug-in hybrids to their portfolio. With plug-in hybrids seen as a bridge to getting buyers comfortable with full EVs, using a charger and using the software, is Renault missing an opportunity in the long term as they add more EVs into their portfolio? So a little too soon to tell, but an interesting strategy. Next up is Ford and their pivot, not to hybrids, but to extended range electric vehicles. Now, you might recall that last July, Ford scrapped plans for both a larger 3-row electric SUV, which they dubbed the personal bullet train, as well as plans to produce EVs in Oakville, Ontario, where they used to build the Edge and the Nautilus. The Edge is now gone from the North American to European portfolios, and the Nautilus is now built in China and exported globally. The new plan was to start building 100,000 Super Duty trucks. You can see one of those here, starting in 2026, eventually adding a multi-energy technology, likely in the year or two following. Now, Ford has confirmed that they are actually working on EREV technology for large pickups like the Super Duty, maybe the F-150, as well as SUVs like the recently updated Expedition and Navigator. This setup is similar to the new Ram 1500 Supercharger that we saw advertised on the Super Bowl and the Scout Terra Harvester. It is a series hybrid with an internal combustion engine and a pretty decent sized battery. So the engine doesn't power the wheels, it charges the battery, which runs the motors, which power the wheels. It's not unlike the Chevy Volt, or more recently, the Ram Charger, and again, the Scout. Ford is claiming a target range of 700 miles. That is pretty impressive. Ram is targeting 590 miles. Scout is targeting 500 miles, so that could give them a bit of an edge. They have not specified the EV range, however. Now, this is obviously more complex in either an electric vehicle or an internal combustion vehicle, but it does address range anxiety. And remember, these trucks are designed to carry and tow large amounts of stuff or people. And so even Rivian, when they announced the R1T, they said, yeah, it'll tow 11,000 pounds, but your range will drop 50%. And if you're in a part of the country where the EV infrastructure is there, or if it's cold outside, which of course will hurt your range even more, having that gasoline engine on board might be a key to success in the full-size truck segment. Ford already has street cred with the F-150 hybrid. This now accounts for about 20% of F-150 sales, which is double what it was last year. So this is a logical extension that will also help address falling sales of the Lightning. General Motors has announced plug-in hybrids, but they have not told anyone where they plan to deploy those. Toyota already has a hybrid Tundra and a hybrid Sequoia, but they have not talked about adding a plug to those yet. So with the Ram hitting the market this year, the Scout hitting the market 2027, and the Ford hitting the market probably around the same time, that will at least keep them competitive and ahead of some of the competition. Next, we have Jeep and the replacement for the Cherokee. Jeep is a brand in trouble. Prices have been rising steadily over the past few years. Sales have been falling, product has been aging, and then to cap it all off, last year they dropped the Cherokee. The Cherokee hit its peak sale in 2018 at 239,000 units. And when it was dropped, that's all we heard. Later, near the end of last year, Jeep finally admitted, yes, they're going to replace the Cherokee with something this calendar year. We don't have a lot of details, but now we've seen our first spy photos. I actually saw this particular vehicle driving around Metro Detroit this past weekend. It reportedly moves to the Stella Large architecture. This is already underneath the new Jeep Wagoneer S, But so far, Jeep has not said anything about an electric version of this car, only a hybrid variant. And it could be a hybrid with or without a plug. Jeep, like Renault, is on the short list of automakers pushing strong non-plug-in hybrids as part of their energy portfolio. The move to Stella Large suggests a slightly larger footprint and a bit of a move up scale, but it would still fill the gap between the Compass and the Grand Cherokee in the Jeep portfolio. And speaking of which, we do need to talk about the Compass, because we will see another one of those later this year, and the Compass is also one of the many aging Jeep products. This will be unveiled in Europe in the spring, South America later, and then North America by the end of the year. And it goes into production in Brampton, Ontario next year, which you might recall was the former home of the Challenger, Charger, and 300. So quite a pivot there. Now, while the Cherokee replacement uses Stella Large, this uses Stella Medium. It's already used by Peugeot and Opel in the Stellantis portfolio, and it offers mild hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and electric variants. The Compass will likely offer all three, although perhaps not in all markets, depending on who is looking for what. This all sounds like a pretty good move for Jeep. We've got two new high-volume core products coming off state-of-the-art platforms. We have a multi-energy portfolio that should adapt to market changes, and so that should help. And that plus the recently reduced prices, they actually cut Wagoneer prices as a starting point. So that and a new global leader should help Jeep pull itself out of its slump. And last but certainly not least is Xiaomi. Unless you live in China, Xiaomi is probably the biggest brand you've never heard of. This is a Chinese electronics giant. It's like Sony or Apple or Samsung, but only sold in China. Now, 4 years ago, Xiaomi said, you know what, with all the stuff we're building, we would also like to get into the EV market, which, sure, that sounds simple. Anyone can pull that off. 3 years later, they launched the SU7 midsize sedan. 3 years later. Now remember, Apple spent 10 years trying to bring an EV to market before scrapping the program last year. So the sedan, and you see it there in light blue, will be followed up with a midsize SUV, the YU7, which you see here, which will go on sale this summer. Like the SU7, it'll be rear drive or all-wheel drive with up to 680 horsepower. That's even more than the launch edition of the Jeep Wagoneer S, and will get up to the equivalent of about 350 miles on the EPA cycle when you convert from the Chinese cycle. And your eyes are not deceiving you. What you are looking at, yes, bears a strong resemblance to the recently launched Ferrari Purosangue, but at about $35,000, it is about 1/10 the price. And you know what they say, if you're going to steal from the best. Now, the SU7, when it was unveiled, they said they wanted to sell about 100,000. But it turns out that the generally competent nature of the product, plus the brand strength of Xiaomi, led to skyrocketing demand. And so they managed to boost production capacity to sell 135,000 SU7s last year, a 35% over target goal. And they're now targeting to sell 300,000 Xiaomis in 2025 between the sedan and the new SUV. The specific yellow vehicle that you see here is the $112,000 high-performance Ultra variant. Now, up to now, you might have viewed Chinese EVs as being fairly mundane and competent, but not terribly exciting. And Xiaomi is clearly going after AMG and Porsche with this vehicle. 1,500 horsepower, 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds, and a track-optimized cooling system that allows 2 full laps of the challenging Nürburgring track without overheating. So, you know, people like sedans. I like sedans, but people really love SUVs generally. And so if with the YU7 offering all the technological advancements of the SU7 in a more functional package, it is likely to take off even more quickly than the SU7 did. And I don't see them falling short of that 300,000 unit goal. Fortunately, Xiaomi is only sold in China. They have kind of talked informally about exporting, but no plans to do that officially. And existing tariffs means they'd probably have to build plants overseas, and that is not happening anytime soon. So Xiaomi remains a China-only enterprise, but it does help explain how quickly all of these Chinese EVs are progressing. And that about wraps up the stories from AutoPerspectives this week. Feel free to visit www.autoperspectives.net to learn more about us. Check out the blog. And if you like what you see, please share and subscribe. And we'll see you back here next week.